We're now in the approach phase, everything looking good. Altitude 5,200 feet.
Flight controllers, gonna go for landing.
Altitude control is good.
Go. Control.
Altitude control is good.
GNC. ECOM. Sergeant. Go. Capcom, we're go for
Altitude
landing.
42 Houston, you're go for landing.
Over 3,070. Roger, understand. Go for landing. 3,000 feet. Program along.
Welcome to the Alien Probe Podcast. Canada's Deputy Minister within its Department of Natural Resources is to prepare a report regarding any incidents involving drones or UAPs. The Deputy Minister will also consider reaching out to the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission to better assess the nature and extent of UAP and how it is handling such reports and investigations. These actions were requested on March 2nd by a Member of Parliament, Larry Maguire, Vice Chair of the Canadians Parliament Standing Committee on Natural Resources. With current tensions with Russia escalating, it seems that Maguire is keen for Canada to work with its U.S. allies to investigate any incidents of UAP or drones around nuclear installations. I'm Doug, and joining me today on the Alien Probe Podcast is Dr. Bill.
Hello.
What's up, Bill?
Hey, what's up?
What's going on?
Nothing much. How about you? We've just...
Oh, it's freezing.
Oh, is it cold there? Wow.
It's like in the 50s. Debbie just took the dog out for a walk. It was kind of cold. But yeah,
Well,
this Canada. I mean, we won't hit the Canada thing too hard. It's Maguire requested from that they aren't looking at these things all together. I mean, he's got John Hannaford, who's the Deputy Minister of Canada, and and they did. There was a video of Maguire talking to Hannaford about what's being done about this, and Hannaford just took over in January, so he's like, I don't really know what we're doing about drones over, nuclear installations, and I'm not aware of anything. And so Maguire basically had to tell him to do something, and Maguire's like, yeah, I'll take it under advisement. No, I mean Hannaford. He sounded totally disinterested. I'll take it. They're going to talk to people at NORAD and things in the U.S. I mean, we're not going to go into this in great depth. I just thought it was a nice anecdote that they're at least looking into it. And then, with the Ukraine, nuclear power plant attack, are the drones over there? And are the drones, are they UAP? We say UAP, they're just unidentified flying things. Phenomena.
Yeah. Well, the Ukraine nuclear power plant. You mean the Russians were shelling the nuclear power plant?
Yeah, and then they were. Yeah, have you been watching? I got CNN on every day just for a few minutes, but it's not really telling me anything.
No.
But
Apparently
it showed them shooting at the
Yeah.
shelling, and then they showed a vid. Did you see the video of the guy? Stop shooting.
I saw something about that. The what I saw was
You're
that
gonna ruin the whole. You're gonna ruin the whole region.
Yeah,
this thing blows up.
I guess a bunch of Ukraine soldiers went into the training building at the nuclear power plant. I think there's 5 or 6 reactors there, and started shooting at a Russian patrol from a building in the facility, and then of course the Russians started shooting back. So yeah. it was designed to do something. I don't know. They're still trying to get NATO to help out. I was like, I'll send you.
And we're like, nah, I don't think we want to do anything. We're doing something. I don't know what it is.
It's crazy.
I saw a bunch of, shoulder-fired missiles. What are those?
The javelins.
No, they're
the different
javelins,
ones.
or they were just those things they were using in Afghanistan. What are those?
The little
RPGs.
Yeah.
They had like 100 of them against this fence, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going to do landing against that fence, but. Maybe somebody's sending them those. I don't know who makes those. I thought the Russians made them.
Apparently, you can join the Ukrainian Foreign Legion and go link up with the forces in Poland that are getting ready to march
Yeah, I
into
saw a video
Ukraine.
on CNN about that yesterday. There was 4 or 5 guys that banded together, and they're going the op. People are coming out, and they're all dressed in camo,
Yeah.
and they're going in. One guy's this, there's a group from America. They were a bunch of hillbillies, and then there was a
Gotta get in a
group that had
fight.
gathered together in Poland. One guy he had been in the military and was a sniper, so this should be interesting. I don't know but they had no gun. I mean, they walked in. The Americans didn't even have coats. We didn't have
warm coats for Poland.
warmed enough coats. It's like they weren't even prepared.
Eastern Europe in wintertime. I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt like you would in the South.
Debbie looks at me and she goes, "Yeah, you probably wouldn't do that." I go, if they did it in spring, I might go, "It's just too cold right now."
Yeah. The problem with that too is if you're not affiliated with a national, a real army, if you're just like a mercenary group in there, they could, the Russians, they'll disappear you and execute you in a week, and they won't screw around.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're just, I don't know, you're a terrorist, you're gone. I mean, and you'll be tried, you'll be fairly tried and executed in a week. You will have a trial. It may only be a couple minutes, but you will have a trial.
It's kind of like that Star Trek trial where they murdered somebody or whatever, shot the other, and then they just, okay, well, you're going to jail now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then they had the group from Poland that really had their act together, and the group with the sniper, and they were well dressed and prepared. No, they didn't have any guns. I guess they're figuring that they'll
pick them up.
The Americans are like, "Where you go?" And so they had a news reporter there that's kind of just grabbed them because they were just walking in, and they had no idea what they were going to. Once they get to the other side, they had no idea where they were going, what they were doing. They were unorganized. I mean, I don't know what you would do.
It's like a setup.
Okay, I'm here. I don't know. So then the ones that had assembled in Poland, they knew where they didn't mention it on the. Thankfully, they didn't mention it on the news report, which is I'm surprised because they can't hold anything back. They just don't have the ability. So they knew where they were going, and they looked like a band that's the band I want.
If you're not affiliated with a national a real army in a real country, you're a terrorist, basically. And the Russians don't screw around. And they're doing what they did in Chechnya. They lost 6,000 troops in Chechnya and pacified that place. And what happened, I don't know a lot about it, but they went into like one city surrendered in Chechnya, and they said the city goes, "We surrender." And a brigade of Russian troops went into the city and were attacked, and they lost half a brigade in this city. So Russia pulled out, and they said, "Okay, we have a new policy. Our new policy is if a city surrenders, it's fine. We'll go in, we'll take over the government, we'll start running things. If they say they surrender and then they shoot any of our soldiers, we'll just pull out of the city and pound it into rubble with artillery."
Which is what they're doing.
Which it worked in Chechnya. And in Chechnya, it took 2 more cities. They did 2 more cities where the Chechnyans said, "Okay, we surrender." They went in, they shot at the soldiers, they pulled out, and they rubbled the towns. And after 2 towns, when a city surrendered in Chechnya, it really surrendered. And that's that. They learned how to do this in Chechnya, and they're just applying it in the Ukraine. The amount of disinformation is shocking that we're seeing. This isn't really relevant to us because we just use it as a communication tool, but Discord has a new policy on disinformation and misinformation. So, but we're just using it as a tool.
It's just our opinion.
I mean, we're not broadcasting. We're not broadcasting to 10,000 people. We're just talking to ourselves and then setting it out. But I love that they go. I got an email that says disinformation and misinformation is now part of our terms of service. Like, how do you define disinformation and how do you define misinformation. And how this is like, explain to me how this works. So yeah, we live in a weird time. One of the things, I'm not going to give any attribute to this site, but there's a guy that was talking about the invasion of Ukraine, and he was saying that he was giving estimates of 500 Russian dead, and the Russians came out with 500 dead troops. But one of the things that he said that was real interesting was, if it's in here, might have been a different one. But it was interesting. He's saying that these claims that 6,000 Russians were killed in the first week was absurd, because when the U.S. invaded the beaches in Normandy, that was how many we lost in the first week of fighting. And he's going, the invasion of Ukraine is not the equivalent of, assaulting the beach at Normandy in World War II. He also said that the pace of the Russian invasion, as far as ground covered, is the fastest ground combat formation in history, that was a quote for the U.S. when it invaded Iraq on the Highway of Death.
Yeah.
U.S. And that was the fastest ground combat formation in history. And the Russians are beating that as far as space.
Well, I heard they started 20 miles out of Kiev. I'm pronouncing it correctly, I hope this time.
Kiev, it doesn't matter.
Kiev. They were 20 miles out, and then a week later, they were 15 miles out. So they went 5 miles in a week.
Well, they're consolidating. They're 15.
They're grouping together.
They're staging. It's a staging area for the next phase, and they're moving. That was my job. It's like, it takes time to move equipment and stuff and get it set up in place. And they've been doing this for a week, and they got a column of trucks, convoy of trucks. It's 40 miles long. That's just the stuff to stage the next phase. Yeah. They're creating a forward staging area. Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Do you really think that the Russians have only lost 500? Do you think that's accurate?
I do. I think the stuff that's coming out, there's so much stuff that's not true. And there's no reporters. They've just kicked out all the major news information services are leaving Russia because they just passed a law against disinformation.
Yeah, so you don't want to go to jail for 15 years.
Yeah.
That's their new policy.
Hard labor.
If you talk bad about it. Yeah,
hard labor.
Talk bad about it, you're going to jail. So, just think if they had that in America.
Oh.
Everybody be in jail.
Well, now they just what do they call it? They deplatform you or whatever.
They don't allow you to, like Joe Rogan. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're not allowed. You talk to now. He's got. You look at his podcast, and there's warnings on everyone.
Oh, really?
Not everyone, but certain of his episodes have this COVID warning thing.
We want to warn you. Oh yeah, we want to warn you that if you listen to this, you might actually hear something that you might find upsetting. Yeah, words may upset you.
Yeah, so we have to be careful when we talk about COVID. We might have to put a banner underneath everything.
Words. Well, YouTube does that anyway. Words may upset you. Well, they did that for your JFK thing, the first one you did.
We did some advertising and they disallowed it. So because it was controversial.
Well, YouTube put a banner on it. It said, look it up in Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fine. There's some, that's a really polarizing, to this day, it's a polarizing subject. So we better start talking about UFOs before everybody thinks we're on the wrong channel.
Yeah, I'm going.
So the loading wave of 47. And like we were discussing earlier, I'm impressed because it's in chronological order and much easier to follow.
You like that? I want to talk about Oak Island a little bit.
Yeah, okay, Oak Island, one of my favorite subjects.
Because you followed that show forever, and it's been on for 9 years.
And then I gave up because I thought it was BS.
Well, I went through and watched some of the episodes and went through and looked at the summaries of the episodes and watched more of the interesting ones. And there was two things that came out from what I was looking at. One was the Mcginnis Sisters. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Where they showed up with the gold cross,
Yeah.
and it was actually
I saw that episode. Yeah.
Captain Kidd's treasure. I was surprised that they were like, what? We looked at an old map and it said Captain Kidd on it, and I actually have this book which is which I've talked about before. It's Captain Kidd and his Skeleton Island, and this book talks about. I mean, this was published in 1937, and this talks about that island and Captain Kidd's treasure. I was like, do you guys? I knew about this. I've known about this. I think I've known about this. I think my whole life about the Oak Island and Captain Kidd's treasure. I've got my nose.
Yeah, and they're not really. Yeah.
Well, maybe they did that. Just
Debbie and I have done. Yeah, we've dedicated a whole show to the not really
deplorable,
the debunking, but the how it's in of course Skinwalker Ranch is to be a spinoff, even though it's a totally different subject.
Yeah,
it's exactly the same show, but they're talking about UFOs, and I think there's going to be more Skinwalker. I believe that hasn't died. I think they're coming back.
I can't watch that anymore. I mean, it's just so ridiculous, and it's obvious that it's cowboys versus Indians. It's the tribal Indians versus the interlopers.
And Debbie's just like, I watched that. And Debbie's like, "You're gonna make me watch another episode of that."
I can't watch that anymore.
It's just look at it like it's an assignment for the podcast, and you're writing along.
The thing that bugs me is the what do they call it? They're the surprise takes where they go, oh, look at this map. It says Skeleton Island, or it says Captain Kidd's treasure right here. But the thing is I think that the Mcginnis sisters, their great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather, whatever, the Mcginnis, actually found Captain Kidd's treasure. They said they found Captain Kidd's treasure and dug it up. Oh. And then I knew
it was gone. He was either gone by them.
And then the Mcginnis sisters showed that gold cross that they'd kept in the family from that treasure. Another thing is that, do you remember them talking about, in an episode of Oak Island, we're talking about blue clay?
I don't remember the blue clay.
Okay, it's in there. It's in one of the episodes. They're talking about, because it's in the money pit, where they're pulling out blue clay. They assayed the blue clay and found that it had silver content. Right?
Yeah.
So do you know where we grew up, do you know the Comstock Lode? Remember that?
Yeah.
The big, huge silver mines up in the Reno area?
Yeah.
So so this is on Wikipedia, and it says here, okay. And this is about the Ophir discovery. It says, in the spring of 1859, two miners, Peter O'Reilly and Patrick McLaughlin, finding all the paying ground already claimed, went to the head of 6 Mile Canyon and began prospecting with a rocker on the slope of the mountain near a small stream fed from a neighboring spring. They had poor results in the top dirt as there was no washed gravel, and they were about to abandon the claim when they made a great discovery. They sank a small, deeper pit in which to collect water to use in their rockers. In the bottom of this hole was a layer of rich black sand, which is, as we know, is a good sign, concentrated from the top of the hidden Ophir bonanza. Henry T.P. Comstock learned of the two men working on land that he had allegedly already claimed for grazing purposes. Unhappy with his current claim on Gold Hill, Comstock made threats and managed to work himself and his partner, Emmanuel Manny Penrod, into a deal that granted them interest on the claim, which they really, actually, you don't. Mining claims and grazing claims are two separate things. Oh, he must have been a dick. On June 12th, a trench they were digging exposed black manganese sand mixed with bluish gray quartz and gold. Two Aristras or grinding mills, built by John D. Winters and J. A. Osborne, made them additional partners and blah, blah, blah. Was originally called the Mexican, later called the Spanish, adjacent to the Ophir claim. With the blue stuff found in this trench, silver mining in America was born. In the rocker, along with the gold, was a large quantity of heavy blue-black material, almost like putty, that clogged the rocker and interfered with the washing out of the fine gold. When assayed on June 27th, it was determined to be a rich sulfide of silver. In fact, the ore was 3/4 silver to 1/4 gold. So the Oak Island money pit has blue clay in it. And what I think is the money pit wasn't some sort of secret treasure pit. I think it was a silver mine that had been dug 400 years ago by the early, explorers.
You ready? Dun, dun,
Dun,
dun.
dun, 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 yeah. Oh, you mean like they do the?
Really?
They do those. What do they call those? They call them the.
Is there a name for that?
It's like the I don't know. I want to say spit take. It's not a spit.
Is this a pause for effect?
So it's like a spit take. Oh, effect. Yeah, it's something. So I think it was a silver mine, and then the flood tunnels that came off the side were just
Drains.
not drains. They were air shafts for the mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you need the air shafts for.
Were they not underwater? What was the water come? Has the
I
water
don't know.
come up?
Either they built dams to keep the water out so they could build the ventilation shafts, or the sea level was lower. They do say that sea level has been rising. And one of the things that struck me, I was looking at a video about Nova Scotia, and there's an island up there where you go to the beach, and there's all these tree stumps. You can walk out, and they're all sitting in the shallow water. And they're supposed to be 1,500 years old, but that just suggests that the water was lower there.
Yeah.
Within 1,500 years. So even at Oak Island, if the water level of the oceans was lower, the flooding shafts weren't flooding shafts, so they could have dammed them to dig the ventilation shafts. And everything about that looks like a standard mine construction. So what I think all these people have been doing with the money pit is that they're just redigging an old mine that was dug 400 years ago. And Captain Kidd's treasure was found by the Mcginnis guys, whenever that was, as their sisters said. So there solved it.
Originally, this thing was pied out, different plots, right across the island. Different people would own different sections.
Yeah.
And there was a African American gentleman that bought one ages ago, and they surmised one of the.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That he found it. I mean, they surmised that he found it.
I think the Mcginnises found some, and this guy, I saw that too. This guy, I think, found some too, because he became very wealthy, and nobody could understand how.
Yeah, he found something.
Yeah, he found. So there was more caches. So here's a chapter in this book. It's called Haunted Caches of New England. So that you can't read.
Oh wow, yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff. More. I'm going to talk about stuff that I haven't read. The Dunderberg Mountain Mystery. I gotta read this. An Unknown Treasure Wreck. Captain Treasure's Hidden Island Chart, which was found in his trunk, his chest. So it's a great book. Great sort of Captain Kidd book.
I mean, I love the story, but I think they've... I just can't. It's another one of those
they
where
went
they
up
just keep...
9.
They're beating it, and then they
9.
spun off another show.
Yeah, they're looking at other treasures, hidden treasures.
Yeah,
so 9 years.
They can't find anything.
9 years.
You found buttons and things we could probably find in our backyard.
Let's just dig in an old silver mine that was dug out, played out 400 years ago for 9 years. Hey, they're making money. That's what they're doing. They're making a lot of money on it.
I don't regret them doing that. It's fine, but it's just people that have followed that from beginning to end are just in the beginning, I'm like, okay, they're gonna find, it was really exciting, and then you go through 3 or 4 seasons, like, holy crap, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
They're just punching holes down and putting sleeves in these big, and like, I mean, like I said, we did a whole show. Deb and I did a whole show on just the nonsense, between that and Skinwalker, which is its sister show.
God.
Which is the same show.
Skinwalker Ranch, a big mystery. What about the reservation? What about the Indians, the angry
Yeah.
Indians all around you that hate
more
you?
likely. That's
that
more
hate
likely
you.
that they're coming in and ready to kill their, their
To-
cattle
to mess with you. And
make weird things happen.
tell us how this ranch is the best land on the reservation, and why isn't it reservation land anymore when it originally was? Solve this
Yeah.
mystery. Solve this mystery for me. So yeah, that's okay.
Okay, we're done with that.
Yes, so we've destroyed Skinwalker
We beat
Ranch.
it to death.
We've destroyed Oak Island. I solved the
I
Oak
thought
Island
you
mystery.
had some news, or you texted me. Well, we're going to talk about Oak Island, and then something. It was funny because something popped up on my.
Oh, you thought it
on
was
my
related to
phone.
that? No.
I go, holy shit! So I tried clicking on it; it wouldn't open anything.
Oh,
But then I looked on the internet. I go for something because look up, see if something's new.
it was
And
something new.
nothing's new. It's just
Yeah,
there's a book out that came out, years ago, the
But-
2014. I think somebody wrote a book
And
about it. That's specific.
somebody wrote a
about-
review of it finally, 8 years
it's a
later.
book, it's actual book, and I'm not going to read it because it's like I've had enough. Of
Yeah,
it.
9 years is too much.
You know.
Yeah, that's but what it struck me, I saw the blue clay thing, and I'm like, oh, I immediately thought of the Comstock load because I remember the blue clay from that. I mean, that was a big big part of for us growing up is the gold and the silver mines and all that stuff. So, are you going to do an ad? You're looking at your watch.
Yeah, I'm looking out. Yeah, we're about ready. At Orion BCS, their goal is to find the best program and rates available for your business. Their team has years of experience helping clients find lower rates for processing credit cards. They understand that every business is different, so let them spend the time to find out what suits your business best. So visit orionbcs.com and let them begin the process towards saving you money to help you realize your financial goals. Once again, visit orionbcs.com and contact them today. All programs of Orion BCS are subject to terms and conditions. Visit orionbcs.com for more details. Well, I butchered that ad.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And you activated your phone. That was
Well, Robert sent me a I thought it was a picture. He bought a new RV. We're gonna say it on the show.
Oh, he sent you.
So he sent me. So I thought it was just a picture, but it's like something just
video.
describing the RV and its features and benefits. So that's
It
what
sounded like his voice. It was an ad. It wasn't his voice.
I don't know. I'm not playing it again. I'll play it after we're done.
Oh.
So he's coming out. He says, I got my RV and I'm coming out this spring. So maybe we'll just hitch a ride. I go, okay, he's got we'll leave his 2 dogs here with Deb. She'll appreciate that. And then
Wow.
we'll
Yeah.
just all go together on his RV.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think that would be great.
Now I don't know if he got a trailer or he's got a giant truck. He says he's got an RV. I wonder if he's just got a big trailer. So I gotta look to see what it is.
For the RV?
Yeah, it's still an RV, but it just doesn't. He probably got a trailer like I used to have. I had
For
Johnny.
Oh,
Yeah.
for carrying the motorcycles and stuff behind
Yeah,
it.
when we did the
Yeah.
Johnny was racing.
Yeah.
So he probably did something like that. I'll look at it later. But I'm glad he got something. He can go out and do some adventure,
Hey,
which will be in Texas. There's lots of places to go.
If you guys want to do that, and do that,
we'll
that
figure
thing,
out what we're. We'll figure out what we're gonna do. And
I'll fly
because it's expensive.
Flying out is not expensive. It's not bad. What's going to be expensive is the driving of the.
Yeah, it's going to be the RV, and I'm going to, I can't expect him to. Anyway,
hey,
so,
I'll throw in on gas. We're all throwing in on gas.
We'll all just go. We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
so
that would work.
I do want to do it.
Yeah, that'll work.
We'll visit some of those places we mapped out.
UFO
cause trouble.
UFO tour.
UFO places.
UFO tour.
And we've got our old neighbors are in. They're in. I think they're in Phoenix. but should be fun. So the wave of 47, where we got off in
The
on our
Wave of
tangent there.
47, and this is, I wasn't really sure why this was interesting until I read the first 2 chapters, and Alfred Loedding
Yeah.
was the first scientific analysis at Wright-Patterson Airfield for pre-Project Blue Book.
Is that before Roswell? Was it
Roswell is 1947, so he would have been there for if stuff was shipped from Roswell to Wright-Patterson in 1947. This guy would have been at Wright-Patterson, and he would have been involved in looking at the stuff.
right?
So and I'm like, who is this guy? I don't know who he is. Why is this thing even written about him? And we should give it a full title. It's Alfred Loedding and the Great Flying Saucer Wave of 1947 by Michael D. Hall and Wendy A. Connors. And this can be found online somewhere, I think at NICAP. And Alfred Loedding, like I said, was the first analyst for UFO, which they didn't call UFO, saucer sightings at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He was also an aeronautical engineer. And I made some notes. Visitors, Fort meant one thing, Russians. Oh, yeah. So for the best part of summer 1947, most serious minds studying the flying disc mystery, like Alfred Loedding, considered that a domestic secret project might account for the sightings. After eliminating that possibility, the foreign option was exhaustively explored. By 1948, foreign origin became a catchword for visitors from outer space, but in 1947 it meant one thing, only one thing: Russians.
Russians. Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. In fact, worries that the Soviet Union may have gleaned a Nazi superweapon at the end of the Second War remained in the minds of the Air Force officials up through 1952. But by late 1947, some aeronautical engineers, like Alfred Loedding, began to consider that flying saucers may represent intelligently controlled machines from another world. And this book basically is trying to explore his sort of intellectual journey on how he came to that decision. And even more interesting, this is from the preface of this thing. It said, they talk about Percival Lowell and looking at the saying he saw canals on Mars. And they always talk about Orson Welles. Orson Welles in the Panic of 1938, which I don't think everyone makes a big deal about that. I don't think that's as a big deal as these books make out. And they say
it fed the fury and fanned the flames of these 1940. That had one doesn't have anything to do with the other. It was so far. It's like 9 years later.
It was 1938. I just think it was. They're saying, well, there was a panic of Orson Welles that caused in the War of the Worlds broadcast, and we don't want to cause a panic by recapitulating this alien invasion theme. And I can remember there'd be like TV shows and stuff where they would say, they'd be like docudrama type things. They would say, this is a docudrama. They'd have all these announcements like every commercial break. It says, this is not a real invasion from Mars. This is a docudrama. Do not panic.
They didn't do that on that show?
Yeah. Well,
I've never listened to the radio show. I love the movie, but I never listened to the actual radio show.
If you tuned in late, I have. If you tuned in late to the Orson Welles radio, it's free. You can find it online.
Oh yeah,
and places. Yeah. If you listen to it, they do a nice introduction. It's Mercury Theater of the Air with Orson Welles tonight. H.G. Wells, War of the Worlds, and then they go into a guy's, and they have a ticking clock in the background, and the guy's looking through his telescope at the surface of Mars. He goes, what are these explosions on the surface of Mars? if you tuned in late to the show, you might think something weird is going on. But then
Right.
at some point they go to the break, and it's obviously it's a show and a commercial. So I don't know how big the panic was. I think there were people that did freak out, but I think it's the same as you see today, where it's like maybe a handful of people freaked out and it made the press, and then they blew it up into a bigger story than it actually was. And then
You gotta
this,
figure that the people that are listening to this are, Aunt Bobby Joe's ranch. They're not phenomenally educated. I'm not saying they're dumb, but they're just not up to date on things.
that's
Like
that's a
you aren't. That's the era.
that's
you don't
a
know
that's
stuff.
a big misconception. Our literacy rates in the United States in the 1930s and 40s were higher than they are now. People
Well, I'm
were,
just saying it with this topic.
yeah,
This
I don't know.
topic and this looking at the sky and seeing things that they think are UFOs that are actually balloons or
Well,
something else.
there was a lot of that. So anyway, I think the War of the Worlds thing was blown out of proportion, and then the people in positions, the authorities, as a friend of mine used to say, when the authorities used to interfere with his farm, the position is that they think that people are stupid and they're going to freak out. These days, I don't know. I think people were more educated in the 30s and 40s. High school in the before the 1950s, a lot of high school educations were more rigorous than you'd have more of an education than you get now with a college education. And I've been following slowly a course of study that's equivalent to a 1880s high school education. It's unbelievable. It's taken me a year to I mean, I'm not even done with the ninth grade yet. I mean, it's
So you think today, if this happened, people would react worse? Because
no,
they're not as
no,
smart?
no. I think people aren't as people are, the intelligence hasn't changed. Just people aren't as educated. But I think people were a lot
They're
more
savvy. I think people are more savvy now.
People
Anyone
are more
said, than
savvy
they
now.
were then,
Yeah, people are a lot more savvy now because you have a huge amount of information that we experience through the internet now. People are a lot
We
more
read
savvy.
all the time. We're reading about stuff.
Yeah,
Everything.
but I
Everything
don't.
that comes up.
Yeah, but I don't think that you can assume that people in the 1938 with Orson Welles assume that they were any less savvy than they are now.
So
I think
why did they freak out? If
I think
a
it
lot
was
of
a
people
hand.
freaked out, or
I
did
think
that
it was
not really?
probably a handful of people, and the press blew it up. Sells papers.
Yeah.
Same now. Look
Yeah,
at
that could,
it sells papers.
yeah.
And
I
then
can't disagree with that.
and then the government used that as an excuse to to tie in with the UFO stuff. To say, this is, we don't want people to freak out. I think they're more freaked out of the idea that Russians had super sophisticated craft that were flying around our country, unimpeded. That was the big fear. Was the Russians were the Russians. Russians. They were gonna
Scary
invade
now,
our
too.
country. Yes, the Russians and the Uranian. I'm sorry, I mispronounced the countries. It's Urania, according to the
You're not
president. The
You're
president.
not Biden. You're not Biden.
He's the president. He's right. He knows the proper pronunciation of the country's name. It's Urania.
I'm not really worried about them invading. I'm worried about them lobbing a nuclear weapon on us after we decide we've had enough and we forget it. We're just going to help, and then it's like,
I don't know
that's it.
I don't know what's going on. This is crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff. They're going, well, we stand with you, Ukraine. We stand together. We stand with you. But we're going to stand over here and watch. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, it's like your friend gets in a fight at the bar and you go, yeah, kick his ass. And then the guy that you're fighting, the guy that's, your friend's fighting somebody, and then someone else's friend jumps in to help their friend, and then you stand there and go, I'm just going to stand over here and still go, kick his ass. Like, don't help. That's what we're doing. We're not helping. We're just standing there going, we support your endeavors. Be brave.
Cheerleaders or cheerleaders.
Be brave. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah. Be brave. Be brave. I stand
You go,
with you.
guys. You go, guys.
I stand with you until the violence begins, and then I'm going to stand over here and watch.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
the smart thing to do. I would do that.
Well, we don't really. Well, you don't get shot that way.
Yeah.
So, or
Yes.
blown up,
or
whatever,
severely
blown
injured.
up, or what?
Severely injured.
And some whatever those vacuum. They were mentioning some vacuum bomb. I don't know.
Yeah,
If you hear
those
anything
are
about
the yeah,
that. What is that?
those are the forgetting what they're called.
And I guess it severely annihilates stuff.
Trump
Oh, they
used
were using-
Trump used one of those in Afghanistan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Trump was
Well, that was okay. It was us.
yeah.
You know what?
I mean, they're talking about
Don't get me started about Afghanistan.
So I mean, yeah, Trump used one of those to take out a whole village of Taliban or whoever. Who knows? I don't know who knows what's going on. Anyway, this guy Loeddings, and what is interesting, we've talked about, or I've read about, the original 1948. The Air Force wrote a formal report, which was estimate of the situation, that came to the conclusion that stating Loeddings drafted the former conclusion to Air Force officials in mid-1948 stating that flying disc may represent extraterrestrial visitation. And this was the estimate of the situation that Ruppelt talked about in his book that went up to Vandenberg, and Vandenberg's like, nope, nope, get rid of it. And this estimate of the situation was read and by people and then eventually destroyed. And I've always been curious about that document. This is the guy that wrote that, and at Wright-Patterson, and was part of the group that said that they felt that flying saucers were extraterrestrial, and this was the beginning. And then like Vandenberg got the report and said, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah, well, the flights again, were they extraterrestrial? Well, they may have been at some point where they were extraterrestrial. Maybe we don't know. I mean, did we see them flying across space? They could have been from like we talked about a million times before. You can't say
that.
We don't know where they developed from. Could have been inside the Earth. I love that hollow Earth theory.
Yes, the hollow Earth. I think it's more likely under the ocean. And apparently, and apparently Loeddings had seen an object in 1932, and which he says in October 1932, the couple saw an object, him and his wife, while driving near Plainsboro, New Jersey. At first, they thought an aircraft was crashing nearby, Loeddings said. Then the craft leveled off and flashed away at high speed, emitting a changing bluish-green light. On reaching his home, he immediately sketched the object from memory. Later, Loeddings said former New York Congressman L.G. Clement reported that he had seen such an object at about the same time.
Wow.
Loeddings estimated the object and his wife had seen was 100 feet in diameter and about 500 to 600 feet high. I'm assuming that's the altitude.
Yeah.
He said the object gave off a weird light, like looking at a firefly, and appeared to change shape. He said he had seen nothing of a similar nature since. And then they have a picture of Loeddings with Dr. Goddard at his testing site, and Dr. Goddard's rocket testing site is Roswell, New Mexico.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Wow. A lot of these things are tied together, it seems like.
Yeah.
White Sands, New Mexico, Roswell. I mean, it just seems to be an area where, it's, ripe for sightings and whatever's going on with it. Who knows if we'll ever really know,
Well, it's hard to say. And then Loeddings was, he worked at Wright Labs, which is and at Wright Labs, he established the first jet propulsion division and became the resident expert on rocketry. This guy was a big deal, and I'm really curious to see where this report takes us. And then there was July 3rd, General Nathan Twining, who had the T2 Army Air Force Intelligence Group under his command. Loedding was T3 engineering section. This is the at Wright-Patterson, or Wright at the time.
Right field. It was
Right field at the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Air Force Intelligence Command commented that officials were indeed looking into the matter of flying disc. He stated that even the top secret research conducted at the aviation labs at Wright Field had not produced technology comparable to that being observed. Continuing, he added that reputable scientists had seen one of the discs and that his report is being studied. And that might have been Loeddings. They were implying that it's Loeddings' report from 1932.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you want to talk about anything else about the
Loedding? Oh, I got more.
Loedding?
Oh, I got plenty more. I got plenty more. He did like Loedding liked the balloon people, and apparently the balloon people saw the people that would launch these weather balloons. He liked them because I guess they would they were good observers. They would use the those instruments to measure the height and angle of the balloon trajectories, and consider them very good, I guess, observers of unusual phenomenon. One of the things that we should remember is that in 1947, aircraft could not yet attain reliable means of reaching supersonic speeds. That was just the rocket-powered planes were doing at that point, like the was it the X-1 with Chuck Yeager? Yeager, who always talked real slow. Be calm while flying the aircraft.
That lets you talk about, like you're from the South.
Yes, that became a standard pilot sort of way of talking. Everybody be calm.
No matter what's happening.
No matter what's happening, you gotta talk
if
real.
You're in a flat spin at 40,000 feet.
I'm in a flat spin.
Your face is pressed against the windshield.
and my head is on fire. Like Yeager.
But I'm calm.
Yeager, when he had to bail out, his head was on fire. Oh my God. Oh man.
My hero.
Yeah, he is awesome. He was absolutely awesome. My head is on fire. I'm going to bail out of the aircraft at this point.
At this time.
Yes. This time, I think it would be appropriate for me to exit the aircraft. Altitudes we had planes that couldn't really achieve altitudes above 40,000 feet or develop methods to hover. This document says that thus in 1947 has become a very important period to study. Accounts from reputable witnesses during the time are also significant because they had not yet had the opportunity to have their observations tainted by a vast body of previously publicized UFO lore. I mean, now we're influenced. We have all these preconceived notions about this stuff.
And we're no closer to finding the truth than we were then.
That's
at least the public isn't. I mean, I don't know what the military has.
Well, I mean, I've been reading this. I'm still reading this book, Watch the Skies, a chronicle of the flying saucer myth by Curtis Peebles.
Watch the skies.
Watch the skies. Watch the skies.
The thing was awesome.
Yes. I got that from the library. I haven't watched it again yet. There was the Condon report, which was supposed to look at this, and it was a scientific investigation of unidentified flying objects, and they came up with the conclusion that there was nothing to it. That was supposed to wrap it up. And here we are. The Condon report came out in 1969, and here we are 43 years later, and the government is looking back into this stuff again. It's like I don't know. But then there was reports in 1975 that the Air Force was still looking into UFOs. So there's all this stuff. But the Condon report had an interesting. This is an aside from the Loedding report. The Condon report, before they initiated the study, that there was a memo that came out, and this caused a bit of a stink with the Condon report and its supposed unbiased look at UFO things. The memo said the trick would be, I think, to describe the project so that to the public it would appear a totally objective study, but to the scientific community would present the image of a group of non-believers trying their best to be objective, but having an almost zero expectation of finding a saucer. One way to do this would be to stress investigation, not of the physical phenomena, but rather of the people who do the observing, the psychology and sociology of persons and groups who report seeing UFOs. If the emphasis were put here rather than on examining of the old question of the physical reality of the saucer, I think the scientific community would quickly get the message. Get what message? Well, there was a lot of pressure, and these universities and stuff were like embarrassed with the idea of doing this study. But this book in People's, he has an interesting excuse for this memo, which I marked. Hopefully I can find it. Which was awesome. His excuse. So, People's, this book, I got to say, is a decent UFO book, even though it's touted as like a debunking book when they're saying the myth of flying saucers. It's a good history, and I think he explains a lot of things really well, but he's not like over the top debunking it. So you can read it and not get irritated because it's too illogical. But he did say this is a thing about the Condon memo that was interesting. There is a final note. The public controversy over the Condon study always centered on the use of the word trick in Lowe's memo, which I just read. And then this guy goes on. He goes, scientists often use the word trick in the sense of problem, difficulty, or task. It was later confirmed Lowe used the word in that sense, which is nuts. I've been involved in science and research for 30-something years. I've never seen the word trick in any scientific publication, any review article, any popular science article. It's nuts to use that as an excuse for the memo for that. So I don't know. I mean, you run across stuff like that, and the criticism of the Condon report was that it was just designed to put this whole thing to bed so people could stop thinking about it. And then now everything's come back to life with the UAP stuff and Elizondo and Chris Mellon. So
yeah, with Elizondo and that project they're working on, that Galileo. Anything new on Galileo?
They had a song.
Harvard? That's Harvard, right?
There was a song, Harvard. There was a song that came out by what's his name? That singer. That's something else. I don't know. They got to build their instruments. They have a nice group of people, I think, that are involved in it. They need to build their instruments. They need to find the right place to put the instruments, and then we wait and see what happens.
Well, I think this speaks to your philosophy about learning institution that's tied to research and development for money.
Oh no, it's these people are not into it. They are not into
They're not
this.
into it just because they're passionate.
They are passionate, but you're talking about if these minimally, I would speculate that these are AI craft. So you have like a space probes that were sent out millions or billions of years ago. And I just did that short on Wednesday. I don't know if you listened to it by Sir James Jeans. And the reason I did that is because, as he points out, we're at the beginning of our trajectory as a civilization and as a species. We've only been around for, at this, a civilized, as he says, a civilized level for 10,000 years. We have hundreds, millions of years ahead of us. This is the dawn of our, trajectory in this galaxy. But there are.
They say, I mean, there's a philosophy that we've been wiped out. The civilization's been wiped out like 4 times.
Could be
already.
Could be
and then redone, and then wiped out and redone. We could have made it this far before, and then.
I would say it's a possibility that it's happened. It could easily have happened 3 times. So you figure the human species in this form, as we are now, we've been around for 150,000 years. So theoretically, you could say that 50,000 years, boom, gone, something happened. And then another 50,000 years, grow back, boom, gone. And now this is the next 50,000 years. So we could be on our 3rd cycle of boom and bust as a civilization, as a species, not as a civilization.
We literally could be on the cusp of that.
Well, Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle talk about that speculatively with the species in the goat in Maud's eye, the mote in God's eye, which is a great book. And that species is in that isolated solar system constantly does these cycles of advancement and decline. And it's a great book. It's a great story. So that could have happened with us. But even if that did happen, we're still, as a species and a planet, we have millions of years ahead of us outside of a catastrophic event happening.
You think? You don't think it's going to happen
next week?
Couple months?
Next week? Only if Biden's going to go, what's this button do? What's this button do? What's this do? What happens if I do this? What is this? I think that the Ukrainians or the Uranians need to stand up and fight for themselves and blah, blah. I think that I've said this before. If we put they should put the 82nd Airborne into Kiev, and if he who shall not be named was still president, would have put the although he's in the news every day, it's hard to tell who's president. Would have put the 82nd Airborne into Kiev. The Russians would have backed off and said, "Okay, we need to negotiate something out of this," and that would be it. That would solve the problem right there.
You didn't pick up the phone call, Joe. Joe.
No, yeah, Joe.
I have a suggestion. You're kind of close to DC.
Yeah. He doesn't know how to. He doesn't know. I don't think
on the door. Hey.
I don't think he knows how to use the phone anymore. He goes, "What's this? It's a phone, Joe. It's a phone. It's a phone. Let me tell you about my growing up as a lifeguard."
We're on the brink of nuclear war, just like we were when we were kids. And
I don't care. I'm ready.
Air raid siren would go off.
Oh yeah.
You're ready just to let it happen.
I'm ready.
We'd have to duck and cover, and we'd be under our desks. Everybody's scared to death.
Yeah.
I thought about it. Remember, we thought about it. It's like, man, I guess it could just happen.
We've been facing the apocalypse since we were kids. It's like there's nuclear holocaust, global freezing, ozone layer. What was after the ozone layer? Then it became global warming, and
don't forget
now
the pandemic.
Then it was climate. Then it's climate change, and now we had and then there was AIDS, which is supposed to end humanity, and then now we had the latest zombie apocalypse, which looks like it's becoming nothing at this point. And it hasn't been that big a deal anyway.
It hasn't been. Oh God, you're gonna get us that.
What?
It's nothing.
All right. How many people do you know have died of this?
I don't know personally anyone.
Okay. How many people do you know went to the hospital with it?
I don't know anyone personally that went to the hospital.
Nobody knows anybody personally that went to the hospital or died from this, because they were elderly people that were in homes. or people that were very sick to begin with. I mean, this is what it boils down to. Why aren't the homeless wiped out from this as a disease?
Yeah, we talk about that. Deb and I talk about that.
Yeah,
No,
this
nothing
isn't. It
happens.
doesn't. It doesn't
We
make
don't
any
know.
sense.
We don't know
Doesn't
any
make any
homeless.
sense.
Do you know any homeless people? Maybe
Okay.
they are.
Okay, wait a minute. I want to look at one more thing. We didn't get as far as this. I did my reading, and we didn't get too far on this.
Well, we'll pick it up next week.
All right, let me just hit this one last thing. It says the military started a formal UFO investigation by the end of 1947. Although as early as July, Army, Air Force, and Naval Intelligence, as well as the FBI, had studied some of the more well publicized reports. Loedding was associated with investigations out of right field by July 9th, yet few records remain of this work. As in later waves, however, only a small percentage of the total number of sightings were reported to authorities. Then he goes, many of these can be found in the National Archives holdings of the U.S. Air Force Project Blue Book files. Some paperwork dealing with UFOs are located at the Air Force Historical Center at Maxwell Air Force Base, which deals with records of the 4th Air Force. 910 pages of lost Air Force documents from the late 1940s have also come to light from the National Records Center in St. Louis, Missouri, via Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
So they've shown the non-existence of documents is the report of that report.
Yeah,
missing.
There's stuff missing. There's a lot of stuff missing. He says, and then microfilms of early intelligence files have surfaced as well, but are now held in private hands, although are becoming available for sale to researchers. This was 20 years ago that this was written. Recently, FBI files provided good insight into some of the early investigations too, despite dedicated efforts to locate naval records containing UFO cases by historian and researcher Jan Aldrich. These files are in large part missing. So there's a lot of stuff of this. I mean, this is the problem with government record keeping with a lot of these things. Like I was talking about at one point, a new command comes in or a command's dissolved and you'll have filing cabinets full of stuff. And then it's like, what do you do with the stuff? If the base doesn't have a place to store the stuff, it goes in the dumpster. So a lot of records, they weren't required to keep the stuff, and a lot of records were lost, which is
Not
fun.
Exactly a chain of custody.
Not a good plan. All right,
Yeah,
so
well,
I think we're okay for today.
All right. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Alien Probe Podcast. We welcome comments, questions, or requests to alienprobepodcast@gmail.com. Visit us on Facebook at alienprobe.net. Excuse me, that's our web. Visit us on Facebook, alienprobe.net is our website, sorry. Twitter and Instagram at alienprobepod. Also, catch us on YouTube at Alien Probe Podcast. Thanks, Dr. Bill, and thanks to our senior producer, Robert Anthony, and we will see you next weekend.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye-bye.